As you can see, my friends here have chemical gadgets to prevent them from being harmed by chemical gases. This is what is happening in Sudan. While both the ASF, the SAF, and the Rapid Support Forces have denied responsibility, the local sources and preliminary assessments suggest that possibility of an airstrike, potentially involving drone technology.
ETV Africa News at this hour.
Comrades power! Power! Comrades power! Power! Comrades ria! Comrades action! The reason as to why we have come here today, I think all of us, not just in Kenya, but the East African community and the broader picture, Africa, we know that there is a war that has continued in Sudan for a very long time. And we want to address those concerns as youth leaders from the region, especially the eastern side of Africa. I will begin first of all by addressing a concern that was there on the 30th of May 2025. Juzi tu. I will start by saying on May 30th, 2025, a United Nations aid convoy, which had carried food, of course, humanitarian aid, comprising of 15 trucks from the World Food Programme, and UNICEF was attacked near Al-Khoma en route to the besieged city of El Fasher in North Darfur. These assaults resulted in 5 casualties and multiple injuries. While both the ASF, the SAF, and the Rapid Support Forces have denied responsibility, the local sources and preliminary assessments suggest that possibility of an airstrike, potentially involving drone technology. This incident is not isolated, but part of a broader pattern of alleged violations by the SAF, that is Sudan Army Forces. In April 2024, the United States imposed sanctions on Sudan following determinations that SAF deployed chemical weapons. As you can see, my friends here have chemical gadgets to prevent them from being harmed by chemical gases. This is what is happening in Sudan. The SAF is using a lot of force. They have been using chemical weapons on innocent civilians. This is why we have decided as East African community, youth leaders, to come out strongly to criticize and to ask the United Nations, to ask all these observers, they should come to the rescue of innocent civilians in Sudan. The attack on the United Nations convoy underscores the escalating humanitarian crisis in Sudan and the urgent need for accountability and adherence to international and humanitarian laws. I will begin by saying that this is a consortium of youth leaders in the East African community. We are going to do a procession to the Sudan embassy, to the Sudanese embassy, which along the way will be joined by our comrades. We'll be having a team of more than 500 people, 500 youth leaders. And after this event, I'm not impressed. So we are going to be joined by our comrades along the way. We will not cease to fight for peace in Sudan. We'll do another procession to the United Nations headquarters. We'll do another procession in the East African community headquarters at Arusha. And finally, we'll do a procession in the African Union headquarters at Addis Ababa. Our main call is peace and cessation of war in Sudan.
Viva!
I will read this statement which I released to the media also to get a picture of what we are fighting for. We gather here at a time of sorrow, outrage and reckoning. This because of the unfolding crisis in the Republic of Sudan, which is not just domestic implosion, and it is an African crisis. It is a humanitarian calamity of staggering proportions, and more than that, it is a moral test for all who claim to stand peace and dignity for African principles. The war that erupted in April 2023 between the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, and the Rapid Support Forces has led to the largest internal displacement crisis in the world today, with over 13 million people uprooted and at least 2 million forced to flee Sudan's borders. Cities like Khartoum, Al-Fashir, Nyala, El Obeid, one centers of commerce, culture, and education, now echo with sounds of artillery and glyph. Comrades, power!
Power!
We are saying this because the calls as to why we are here is because so many students in this country who have been displaced from Sudan, they have been complaining, saying that their education is not thriving because of lack of peace, because of this war. They have been forced to come to Kenya, where education is peaceful. Now we have seen it wise, of course, to speak for the voices of the oppressed, the hoi polloi, the people who are dying like chicken. This is something we must stop. Comrades, power!
Power!
Let me speak plainly. This war is not waged in the name of the Sudanese people. It is being waged against them. From Darfur to Gezira, from the Blue Nile to Khartoum State, innocent civilians have been killed, starved, and brutalized. These are not mere collateral casualties of conflicts. These are the deliberate victims of political war waged by generals with no mandates and no mercy. Comrades, power!
Power!
Reports of chemical weapons usage, ethnic cleansing in Darfur, the targeting of women through mass rape, the destruction of humanitarian corridors, paint a picture of a war that has crossed every line of human decency and international law. We condemn these acts unequivocally. These are war crimes, and if verified, they are crimes against humanity. Comrades, power!
Power!
As the East African Students Union, representing the youths and students from across our region, we affirm our solidarity with Sudanese people, and we must speak to the truth behind political dynamics. The RSF, under the leadership of General Mohamed Dagalo Hemeti, has consistently voiced for a civilian-led transition, for justice for victims of violence, and for inclusive governance that reflects Sudan's rich diversity. Comrades, power!
Power!
While war is never desirable, we recognize RSF's stated position in favor of handing power to the people. This is something actually is happening in Uganda and also our neighbor Tanzania, whereby the oppressed, the people, the common people, the hoi polloi, the have-nots, they want a democratic rule, whereby the people have a voice. They are voting directly. To their preferred candidates. This is the same thing we are advocating for, and the same even our leadership in Kenya is advocating for. The SAF, on the other hand, has often cloaked itself in the language of statehood, while actively obstructing the transition of civilian rule. They have bombarded residential neighborhoods, shelled hospitals, and undermined humanitarian negotiations. In doing so, they have betrayed the revolution and sabotaged every future they claim to defend. Therefore, we call upon SAF to cease all hostilities immediately, tout de suite, re-engage in AU and IGAD-led peace talks, allow unrestricted humanitarian access, respect the will of the Sudanese people for democratic civilian governance. Comrades, power!
Power!
We also address the East African region and clarify the matter that has turned unfortunate misunderstanding. His Excellency William Samoei Ruto of Kenya, he met with RSF leadership. Comrades, power!
Power!
He was not endorsing one faction over the other. He was upholding Kenya's long-standing tradition of principled peace diplomacy. Comrades, power!
Power!
President Ruto's door remains open to all parties. His agenda is peace, not politics. We condemn this courage in stepping forward when others have remained passive. Sudan means mediators, not spectators. Comrades, power!
Power!
Comrades, power!
Power!
We must also address the critical gap, language, and access to information. The bulk coverage of Sudan crisis remains in Arabic, inaccessible to major East Africans. This has enabled misinformation and distorted narratives to thrive. We urge regional media, our local media especially, to bridge this gap by investing in translation, context, and grassroots reportage. As I finish, I would like to say, and to the youth of this moment, let us organize, educate, and stand in radical solidarity with our Sudanese peers, from Kampala to Kigali, from Nairobi to Juba. We must raise our voices not as tribal bigots or blocks, but a Pan-African generation determined to end wars will not start and to build democracies that serve the people. In conclusion, the East African Students' Union calls for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire, protection of all civilians, especially women and children, prosecution of all parties involved in war crimes and violation of international law, support of Sudanese-led civilian transition backed by inclusive regional diplomacy. Let us not be remembered for what we ignored, but not what we confronted. Let us not inherit the shame of indifference, but the honor of courage. God bless Sudan, God bless East Africa, and God bless our shared African future.
Viva, viva, viva.
Comrades power! Power! Comrades power! Power! Comrades ria! Ria! Comrades action!
Action! Yes! Yes!
My final remarks. My final remarks are very simple. My final remarks are very simple. The problem we have here in Kenya today is the reason as to why we saw the other day the whole cover page of Standard and the issue to do with the RSF and SAF conflict in Sudan. The only reason that is thriving in Kenya is lack of information. The fact that in Sudan they use Arabic, here we use English. Yes. So it is very difficult for Kenyans to understand what is happening there. As we speak, people are fighting. As we speak, women are being raped. As we speak, small children are being maimed and being killed.
So sad.
If you Google very well, you realize that children as less as 1 year old, they are being raped.
Shame.
By the military in Sudan. Now, if you ask me as a youth leader in Kenya and East Africa, to be silent when young people are being raped, I'll tell you we shall not allow, we shall not keep quiet. Comrades, will we allow?
No.
We shall not allow.
Any kind of inhumanity.
Any kind of inhumanity here. Any kind of inhumanity here is inhumanity everywhere. Yes. Any injustice here is injustice everywhere. We want everyone to understand that our President William Ruto is intent in supporting the opposition in Sudan is not based on diplomatic problems or rather starting war between diplomatic war between Kenya and Sudan. He was simply saying that all we want as Kenyans is peace. Yes. All we want as Kenyans is a cessation of war.
Peace is paramount.
Peace is paramount. Yes. So apparently that is done for today. What we wanted is to do a peaceful procession to the Sudanese embassy.
Peace.
Along the way, we'll be joined by our comrades. I think finally we'll have a team of more than 500 youth leaders drawn from all countries across East Africa to tell the Sudanese embassy as Kenya. Yes. We are non-partisan. We are non-partisan. We are non-partisan partner in the East African bloc. We don't want to support any side. Yeah. But obviously we want the cessation of war. We want peace.
Support peace.
So that is our call.
Support peace.
Yes. So I think our media people will just organize themselves as we move towards this side. You will just capture us as we move peacefully. Swali? Yes. You have a question? Look at Swali. Yeah. I will also share with you. I will share with you the statements we have. Mushemi, utawapea kila mtu statements.